Right, last one for the day, and we are doing part 4 of Padraig Pearse's The Murder Machine essay. It's called Against Modernism, and I begin. All the speculations one saw a few years ago as to the probable effect of Home Rule on education in Ireland showed one how inadequately the problem was grasped. To some, the expected advent of Home Rule seemed to promise as its main fruition in the field of education the raising of their salaries. To others, the supreme thing it was to bring in its train was the abolition of Dr. Starkey. To some again, it held out the delightful prospect of orange boys and orange girls being forced to learn Irish. To others, it meant the dawn of an era of common sense, the ushering in of the reign of a sound modern education, suitable to the needs of a progressive modern people. I scandalised many people at the time by saying that the last was the view that irritated me the most. The first view was not so selfish as it might appear, for between the salary offered to teachers and the excellence of a country's education system there is a vital connection. And the second and third forecasts, at any rate, opened up picturesque vistas. The passing of Dr. Starkey would have had something of the pageantry of the banishment of Napoleon to St. Helena, an effect which would have been heightened had he been accompanied into exile by Mr. Bonaparte Weiss. And the prospect of the children of Sandy Row being taught to curse the Pope in Irish was rich and soul-satisfying. These things we might or might not have seen had Home Rule come. But I expressed the hope that even Home Rule would not commit Ireland to an ideal so low as the ideal underlying the phrases a sound modern education. It is a vile phrase, one of the vilest I know, yet we find it in nearly every school prospectus, and it comes pat to the lips of nearly everyone that writes or talks about schools. Now, there can be no such thing as a sound modern education, as well talk about a lively modern faith or a serviceable modern religion. It should be obvious that the more modern an education is, the less sound, for in education, modernism is as much a heresy as in religion. In both medievalism were a truer standard. We are too fond of clapping ourselves upon the back because we live in modern times, and we preen ourselves quite ridiculously and unnecessarily on our modern progress. There is, of course, such a thing as modern progress, but it has been won at how great a cost. How many precious things have been flung from us to lighten ourselves for that race, and in some directions we have progressed not at all, or we have progressed in a circle. Perhaps, indeed, all progress on this planet, and on every planet, is in a circle, just as every line you draw on a globe is a circle or part of one. Modern speculation is often a mere groping where ancient men saw clearly. All the problems with which we strive, I mean all the really important problems, were long ago solved by our ancestors. Only their solutions have been forgotten. There have been states in which the rich did not grind the poor, although there are no such states now. There have been free self-governing democracies, although there are few such democracies now. There have been rich and beautiful social organisations, with an art and a culture and a religion in every man's house, though for such a thing today we have to search out some sequestered people living by a desolate seashore or in a high forgotten valley among lonely hills, a hamlet or Connacht or a village in the Austrian Alps. Mankind, I repeat, or some section of mankind, has solved all its main problems somewhere and at some time. I suppose no universal and permanent solution is possible as long as the old Adam remains in us, the Adam that makes each one of us and each tribe of us something of the rebel, of the freethinker, of the adventurer, of the egoist. But the solutions are there, and it is because we fail in clearness of vision or in boldness of heart or in singleness of purpose that we cannot find them. Again, I think the main theme coming from reading these essays is that the issues that we face in 2024 were no shade different really than the issues that Padraig Pearse is speaking of over 100 years ago, at least in terms of the spiritual element of it. By spiritual I mean adhering to the nature that is innate in all of us. There's a flavour of me that is different than my cousin, but we also retain a similar foundation, not solely because we come from the same family, but we come from the same extension of families all across Ireland, all across this island. Okay, so there's a collective pool of memory that we pull from that informs us. Our imaginations are linked. Okay, they might not be in agreement once they come down to us in the speaking and reasoning part, but they're linked nonetheless. Okay, science is catching up with that, with the epigenetic memory, intergenerational trauma, intergenerational passing of acquired characteristics, etc. So science is catching up on that stuff. So it's not crazy. There's no mad religious or spiritual stuff attached to it. These are observations that Pearse alludes to here when he's saying that the problems that we face have been solved by our ancestors long time ago, probably solved many times. Okay, and as he recommends in one could say a pretty modern perspective, or what modernism pretends to strive towards, is a kind of kaleidoscopic vision of things, the Renaissance man that sees all aspects of all teachings as coming under the umbrella of being. Okay, so the study of life itself, the study of the soul, psychology, the knowledge of the soul. Okay, so lovely stuff. And again, the really interesting part of this, he doesn't name it by name, but he alludes to it, is in modernism, is the relationship that each person has with time. Okay, I think in this modern age, the age that we are in, what we would call the present tense, our relationship with time is one of a narcissistic view of who we are in the present. Okay, because if you watch people, there's the lip service that's given to maintaining not to be using the climate change words, but a sustainable culture, a sustainable psychology in the people that will buffer them against the travails and the tortures of the future. Okay, we don't pay as much mind to that as we should, or as we could, or as we might. We also pay very little attention to the past. If anything, we tend to look down our nose at it, because we are fond of the belief that anything that has come from the past and is closer to the present is automatically of superior quality to that which preceded it. Therefore, what follows in the future will automatically be hitting a gradient which is heading towards positive stuff. Okay, so time, our relationship with time, is a linear one. Bad being the past, positive and good being the future. Okay, there's nearly a Christian flavour to that, but it's just brought down to the material realm, where we've chopped off the idea of a heaven or a hell, and we have brought the same reverence to another time into our modern temporal view of the world, which is past, present and future. So we still yearn for heaven. We still live according to the belief that heaven exists and you can get there. We're all very, very eager to get there. And what that can be used for against us is by selling us utopias in this world, in this life. If you just do these two things, the fields of Elysium await you. But in this life, there's no need for a God anymore, or an afterlife, if anything of that sort. You have it here now. You just need to bring in the right human rulers over you, and they'll do it for you. Okay, so the modern times has trapped us in essence, because we're still dealing with a theological belief that there's better to come after. But we're also trying to accommodate a growing nihilistic atheist view that there is no overarching meaning or feeling to existence. Okay, there's no consciousness that's worthy of any sort of speculation beyond the idea that we live and breathe. So the clash then comes when we try and adhere to the modern materialist view of the world, that only the physical is real, and any sort of speculation on what happens to the body when it dies, and is there a self-consciousness or a consciousness that leaves the body, is that a thing, what happens there? Those sorts of questions over the last few decades have been laughed at, ridiculed, to the point where you're kind of seen as a bit of an oddball if you start to entertain those questions. but those questions are there nonetheless. Okay, there seems to be, history would tell you that man has more of an interest in the religious speculation, the speculations around the creation, the existence, and what comes after, if there is an after, than he is around the idea of only recognizing what he can hold in his hand as legitimate and real. Okay, so you've far more of a time of a habit, a predisposition towards religious questions than you do towards, I would suggest, an atheist question, where you just deny any sort of order to the universe, to existence. Okay, so there's an interesting theme brought up there, the one of time, which is juxtaposed against our ancestors' view of time, which would have been more of one of growth, decay, life coming from death, that sort of thing, the never-ending wheel of the seasons, okay, and from baby to the adult to the old man in the walking stick, the cycles of time, okay, cycles, not just a start, middle, and an end, okay, which only looks at, if you're young, and you will get older and wise when you pass through time. Whereas the secular view would show that you could go through any sorts of deaths and a shedding of the old and a rebirth into the new at any stage in your life. Okay, so that was Pearse's, the fourth essay in a bigger essay, The Murder Machine. Thank you.